FlexiSpot sent me one of their new E8 standing desk frames, and having put together an E7 before and studied the manual this time, it went together relatively quickly, so it took just over 5 minutes to get that frame together. And this video is sponsored by FlexiSpot. One thing that's new with this model is the legs are actually round on each edge as opposed to square, and that makes for a more elegant look and I guess more comfortable to bump into with your own legs. Now I'm using this with the 48 by 24 inch desktop, which is the smallest that it'll go with, but it still needs a minor amount of adjustment to make its mounting holes match up with the desktop's pre-drilled mounting holes. And plugging it all together, the connectors are all labeled, but even so they only fit in the right hole, so there's no way to screw it up. And extending the legs for the first time on the workbench, they just seem to go ridiculously far with the desk already on the workbench. Now this thing is pretty hefty, so a bit tricky to get off the workbench. In fact, I never carried the box it came in down to the basement. I just unpacked it right where the FedEx guy dropped it. Now I was curious how much it actually weighs, so I'm just putting a load cell under it and then lowering the desk frame onto it, lowering it far enough that the legs come off the ground so that the load cell carries the whole load of the desk frame. So we're at 30 kilograms for the frame, or about 66 pounds. The rated load capacity of this is 160 kilograms or 352 pounds. That's a lot more than other standing desks. So I thought, let's just load it up with lots of heavy stuff and see how it does. Still doing fine, so let's add a bit more weight. So that's sounding a bit labored going up. I was curious just how much load I put on it, so I weighed all the stuff one at a time on a bathroom scale. And the sum of all that was 353 pounds or 168.8 kilograms. Looks like I was just over the maximum load. But what other heavy things can I lift with it? Maybe this bandsaw? Oh, I'm at the height limit. Whoops. Still a little bit off. There, that's the FlexiSpot lifting my 26-inch bandsaw. I was curious how much this bandsaw actually weighs, so now with a load cell to measure the force. And let's see, 95 kilograms, that's about 210 pounds. So not really all that heavy compared to the junk I had on there before, and I cheated a little bit because I took out the bandsaw blade. That's pretty light for a 26-inch bandsaw, but that's because this one is made out of wood, much lighter than cast iron. But my table saw is not made out of wood. So I got it straddling my saw with this piece of wood attached to the saw to lift it by, and I put the load cell on to begin with because I'm curious how much this saw actually weighs. But the question is, do I have it on the center of gravity? So pulling 131 kilograms so far. 150. Oh, it's coming off the ground. And there, lifting the table saw. 158 kilograms. So that is very close to the load limit of this FlexiSpot desk frame. Let's take it all the way to the top. And there you can see it, levitating table saw. I should sweep out from under there. I know this desk frame will lift its rated load, but I wonder what's the absolute limit. So I've got this experiment load cell here to measure the force, tied to this 2x4 which just goes to the legs, and a display for how much force we're actually pulling. Oh, this rope is quite stretchy. So that says we're pulling 134 kilograms Uh-oh. This rope's looking a bit funny. That pop was the rope, I think. And when there's a discontinuity in the force, like when that pop happened, the disc detects a collision. So we're at 150 kilograms, so not quite rated load yet. And once again it detected a collision because this rope is starting to fail, and so it thinks it collided. So I have to go one small bit at a time. So that's well over its rated load already. And that rope looks like it's about to go. We are exceeding the load limit of the rope here. Wow, look at that. 240 kilograms there. That's a quarter ton almost. 250 kilograms. 300 kilograms. Oh, okay, rope failed. Standing desk is fine. We went, peak was 320 kilograms. So that peaked out at 320 kilograms with a load exactly in the middle, which is to say each leg was lifting 160 kilograms, which is basically the rated load. This standing desk will lift the rated load even if it's entirely on one leg. And 320 kilograms is about 700 pounds, so that's a lot, and it might have lifted even more if my rope hadn't snapped. And this was really cheap rope from the dollar store. The inside parts of it kind of reminds me of tissue paper. It's a bit stronger than tissue paper though. The outside part, once the inside failed, the outside did all the holding, so that stuff is actually surprisingly strong. So far I've just let all the wires kind of hang loose off of it, but it actually has this tray here that goes on the bottom, and that neatly contains all of the wiring. And they also wanted me to demonstrate the stability of this desk. I guess that means I'm doing my usual jump test on it. Well, seems to be doing fine, except it's sliding on the floor. Oh, look at that. I can scooch the desk around, and the frame is doing just fine. It does shake around a little bit with a hand plane on it, but it's not made for that. I'm making it look like I'm trying to break this standing desk frame, but that's not true at all. I really want to keep this one because down here in my basement office, I've got two of them. So this one's actually an E1 and is currently in the up position. I use it up and down, alternating all the time. Lately I've raised and lowered at least twice each day. And then this one is an E7, and I use that for my electronics. And at some point I raised it to this position where I was working on something small and fiddly, and I actually quite like it that high. In fact, it would have been nice if the lab benches back when I worked at Research in Motion were standing desks too. Having finished most of my video, I was thinking, what could I use for a YouTube thumbnail? And I realized the table saw hanging off of the FlexiSpot would be the best, but where the table saw is, I can't get a really good shot of it. So I decided to move my table saw, and it turns out that FlexiSpot standing desk is a really good table saw mover. It's like a little gantry crane. So I think I'll use that for my YouTube thumbnail. And this E8 goes all the way down from kid desk height, just over 24 inches, up to about here, which for me is way too high. FlexiSpot will be having a Black Friday sale with up to 70% off on selected products. And for those sales that are on Black Friday and on Cyber Monday, FlexiSpot will randomly select some orders and fully refund the purchase price, so your orders are free. And you can also watch FlexiSpot's live stream on Amazon and win some of the giveaways there as well. And it's got a 15-year warranty.